Today, I am joined with Mateyus Winters. Mateyus is the CEO of Pathveah, and we're going to talk about this is part one of a three-part series, and I'm going to share some information about the Intergalactic Resettlement Program, my paranormal experiences, and I may as well I'll start from the beginning. And I would like to clarify a few things. Welcome, Mateyus.
Thank you and welcome all.
Like I said, this is part one of a three-part series, and I'm going to start with some clarification and background information because it's important to take it in context. So I haven't been at this for really very long. It was in 2017 that my guides told me that it was time to come out of the closet and make public my ET experiences and the knowledge that I received as a result. And my goal is not to convince anybody about my truth, but rather to educate those who are interested and inspire others who may also share similar experiences. My memories, they've sort of spontaneously unfolded without any hypnosis or regression therapy. And they emerged very slowly as I became more public. So it's like the more I share with other people, the more experiences I start to remember. It's really an interesting way that it's happening. But as you know, I don't have full recall. I just remember what I remember. And I didn't learn about this from research or from books. In fact, I have actually reading comprehension issues. So I have read very few books in my life. And so this is not based on anybody else's experiences or anybody else's work. This is strictly my very own unique experience that I'm sharing. So since I was in contact with various beings from other realities, I felt that it was important to not do research about anybody else's experiences. I wanted my experiences to be pure and not influenced in any way by the experiences or stories from other people. And then after I went public through social media in 2018, that's when I started to compare notes with other people. And I was really surprised at the similarities of our experiences that we reported. Now, it's important to note that I do not represent the beings from the Intergalactic Resettlement Program in any way, and I'm not their spokesperson. I only speak about what I know and what I experience for myself, and many of us are having these experiences, but most people don't remember. Further, I do not have human language for all of my experiences, but I've chosen best as I can to relate my experiences in common English. I've been encouraged by my spiritual guides to provide information so that people can make up their own minds about the options that they might choose from for dealing with future world events. The Intergalactic Resettlement Program may become an option when our physical planet is in crisis or is transitioning or is just not safe to live here anymore. With all of the exopolitical contact that we hear about today, it's important for you to know that I am not part of any Earth-based group, religion, politic, or philosophy, and I'm not part of the secret space program. I also wish to stress that there's nothing to be afraid of. These off-world beings are absolutely benevolent and loving. They have a do no harm mandate, and they do not interfere with human free will. They may become involved in our lives when we ask for help and prove that we're serious by altering our lifestyle and our thinking so that we can hold sufficient frequency that enables us to have contact. And Mateyus, you probably are familiar with the saying, when the student is ready, the master appears.
Well said.
So depending on how ready we are and how open-minded we are, then appropriate contact can begin. And it's important for people to realize that this on Earth is our realm, and we've got both personal and global sovereignty. This is our free will, and it will always be respected by benevolent beings. So, sometimes people say, well, how can I tell if the beings are benevolent or malevolent? Well, it's how they make you feel. The lower level beings that pass themselves off as being benevolent, they do not give you the kind of love and the kind of empathy and, those kind of spiritual feelings that you get from the benevolent beings, because the lower level beings, they just can't go there. Do you have anything you want to add or ask about that,
Yes,
Mateyus?
I do agree with everything you've just said. Um, I believe that the Galactic Federation do believe that when the humanity is ready for any contact or any provisions whatsoever, they must do the best they can to look after their own consciousness first. What is best for them? Are they taking care of their needs? Are they happy? Most of all, do they understand the true universal law? And do they understand that there's nothing above or in between that true universal law? I do believe once people get to grips and understanding of what this means and what this means to them, they will have a more comfortable life to live. They will be able to then ask themselves many, many things other than ET contact. I'm quite past all the knowledge. I do love receipt knowledge every day. Um, but it's the way of living, I want to say. It's the
Mm-hmm.
true way of living.
Mm-hmm.
And for it to be expressed properly and manifested in time and space properly, there's only ever the present moment. And I do believe that right now, people are waking up. People are waking up to their lives and waking up to the fact that it is their choice as to how they want to live their life. As me and you both know that very well, we do wish to help our family and our friends, and this is exactly what they want as well.
Mm-hmm. Well said. Well said. Yeah, for sure. So I'll just continue a little bit more here. So when it comes to the beings that I deal with, now there are many, many, many kinds of beings. There are many, many kinds of contact experiences. So I'm speaking from my own personal experience. But I want you to know that I don't know species or racial names. I don't know planet names or group names. And my ET friends are not from any specific star system. This is an unorganized frequency-based movement. And when we're ready, contact commences. So I often get asked, oh, are they from the Palladians? Are they from the Pallades? Are they from Sirius? Are they reptilians? No. I don't deal with any of those type of beings that interact with Earth that we hear about. These beings are intergalactic. They have been emigrating and emigrating from the big ships back and forth. They are multi-generational of mixed race, if you want to call it that. We're all the same species. All of us humanoids are the same species. We're just different family lines or races within one species. So we're all very similar.
Well said, well said.
And on Earth, there's millions of us who share in the intergalactic work. And I was so delighted to find out that I'm not alone, and that my experiences are actually in no way unique. And it's the policy of this ET group to suppress our memories before we return so that we can remain embedded into the Earth's social and political construct for soul development. And this is for our own protection, because even today, many humans have their rights violated as they are diagnosed with mental illness labels when they go public with their ET experiences. And in the 1980s, the medical industry mostly switched from physical lobotomies to chemical, and this practice is one of the things that is holding back the spiritual and the intergalactic progress of our human race. Now, before I get into that a little bit more, I'd like to know how you feel about that, Mateyus. Would you agree that a lot of very healthy, normal, God-given experiences when we go public we're met with stigma, we're met with ridicule, or worse, the psychiatric industry, which is part of the big, medical industrial complex, gives these terrible labels to people and tries to convince them, actually gaslighting people into believing that they're mentally ill, and then putting them on all kinds of prescription medications and even psychosurgery, which I'd like to get into in a little bit. But I wanted to hear what you had to say about that.
Yes, my love. I call those lies, point blank lies, as Andrew Bartes would put it, disconnect you from source at every single possible way. As we both know, I have a knack for all of this rubbish, and I do wish for people to put it aside. It is easier said than done for some people. And I do believe that what's most has happened has been catastrophic, let's put it that way.
Oh, yeah.
People have suffered, suffered losses, suffered, again, lies, and I want nothing to do with them.
Mm-hmm.
We must clean our hands. We must clean our hands and continue in our development, continue in the life that we have given ourselves, and whatever we wish to experience, that is the only truth that we should live for. I, for one, understand the ramifications of karma. Karma does exist. For those people that are wishing to know if it exists, it does exist. Whatever goes around comes back around, as a good man, Jordan Maxwell, did say. God has seen the forthcoming of many adult Hitlers and people just alike. He is not happy with what they've done, and it is understandably 100% free will universe. Now, I do wish for people to liberate themselves at all costs, without any merciful bargainings with anything that's happened to them in the past. I want them to look the other way and not look back ever again. In regards to the way I feel for the children and my home, the truth needs to be said. We need to know how we live our lives, how we're meant to live our lives, not for somebody to come in our lives and try and tell us we got to live one way. It's gone on a long time. It's gone on a long time, and I was finished and done a long time myself. I do believe that the new information that people are hearing is what people need to hear, just like me and you, my love. And this is the time, the perfect time, for them to have the brief and proper understanding and introduction as to if an ET were to come to us, if a race were to come to us from the sky. First, they're going to question our intellect. They're far superior in their intellect compared to us, but we have been nullified to believe that we are insects. One thing I like to make a reference to is an insect is very variable in its life force. It knows why it's living. It knows which way it wants to go, because it's understanding its connection with source. For what I've just said about looking the other way, I do 100% feel like this is the best way to frame that sentence as to what's happened. People have been victimized. I've been through it myself, if people wish to know, because it is true. There's too many lies, and it must end. And I love those flat Mars. We will transcend. We will transcend. But a brief statement for people's happiness. If people want to, break away from the government, if they feel like they're having any government issues at all, I'd like to just recommend people have a look at an ecclesiastical deed poll and a live born record. Now, some people don't understand what this is, but people understand what their birth certificate is. Their birth certificate is a trust. In God we trust, is what they've said. Now, everything that's happened outside of that, these bills, these pharmaceutical cartels, everything in between, just like houses, government, everything, legislation, is all bullshit. It is all bullshit. Excuse my language, but it is. And we must look the other way. We must look towards the light and not in the darkness. It is a choice if you wish to stay in the old paradigm. It is over. It is over. I do wish to liberate those people. So if people want to get rid of government completely, please look at an ecclesiastical deed poll, so then they can have no more say whatsoever in your life. But prescription drugs, nothing, none of it, done. Understand that it's not as financially stable, but you must. This is something that I have done myself, and I do recommend for people to do. An ecclesiastical depot to send to the right registrar, and a live born record is your own birth certificate, a true birth certificate with the divine, and nobody can come in between you and that. So I want to say thank you to those people that are wanting solutions, and thank you to the people that are listening to us, because if people want to know the way to live, they really want to understand. I really want to understand how I should live. I know how I should live, but I'm learning every day. This is the way. This is a good and beautiful introduction as to what Karen's given us. It's a beautiful introduction as to the true way we must live. So yes, I do want to thank you and pass that back to you, my love. Thank you very much for letting me express those words, because the corruption is gone. As people know, we're watching it fall apart. Watching it fall apart. The gods and the ETs, they want us to advance. And they're seeing, are we making the right decisions? Are we doing are we following the right, our intuition, in a sense of guidance and thrill and pleasure? Because this is the way you should live. Live your life. You should be happy. What I always ask is, are you happy? Anybody I mean, are you happy? That is all that matters. That is all that matters. So in a sense of wanting to leave the paradigm and look the other way, you can do that. You're going to need paper that you're going to have to back yourself on that in all regards. So an ecclesiastical depot and a live born record. If people wish to find out more information about this, you can have a look at Santos Bonacci's work in regards to him and what the Vatican have done to the world with the birth certificate. The birth certificate is basically your trust for them to do whatever they wish to acquiesce with. Now, people, when you understand trust law, you'll get past it. You'll say, no, I don't. You've been apparently that your body's worth millions on the stock market. I've seen it. I don't want none of that. You think I care about that? What a joke. I care about my soul. Nobody can touch that. Nobody can touch that. So I just want to say thank you in regards to people wanting to find the real truth as to how we must live our lives and how you would want to live your life, and know that we're going to give you the biggest hug ever when you accept your own decision as to wanting to make yourself a lot more happier.
Yeah, thank you. So I just want to go back a little bit to what I was talking about before, where this is disturbing information for those of you who haven't heard it. And the reason I'm telling you is not to disturb you, but to wake you up to how intensely the system we live in wants us to be ignorant, wants us to be afraid, and wants to shut us down spiritually so that we're not open to these messages. So what you've been talking about, Mateyus, that's a very important part. But I also want people to know about what has been going on for the last, even 60, 70 years has been common practice. And so so what can happen when we go public with our sovereignty, with our ET experiences? Well, according to NRP.org, about 50,000 people received lobotomies in the United States. About 10,000 of these procedures were transorbital lobotomies, and the rest were mostly prefrontal lobotomies. Walter Freeman performed about 3,500 lobotomies during his career, of which 2,500 were his ice pick procedure. In 1967, Freeman performed his final lobotomy on a patient who died from a brain hemorrhage. So literally, this is literally what was happening before the psychotropic drugs came into full force. They would take an object like an ice pick and they would put it in the corner of your eye and tap it with a hammer till it sunk through the thin layer of bone into your brain tissue. And then they would move it back and forth to destroy the frontal cortex of the brain. Now, this is in the United States alone, and this has been going on very much. This was accepted as acceptable treatment for people who are so-called having delusions. This is what they did to thousands and thousands of people to shut them down spiritually. Now, livescience.com claims that the lobotomy is rarely, if ever, performed today. Well, they're still doing it. He describes it as a much more elegant procedure. He says, you're not going in with an ice pick and monkeying around. Now, what they do is they call it psychosurgery. They go in and remove the spiritual parts of your brain to treat patients who don't respond well to the other allopathic treatments. So in the 1980s, they replaced this procedure with antipsychotic drugs and other psychotropic pharmaceuticals. And ET contact is still considered extreme mental deviance. And so disclosure is often met with stigma, ridicule, and psychotropic medications that cause chemical lobotomization. And so this is why our memories are suppressed before returning to life here on Earth. This process is not some kind of mental rape. In fact, we agree to forget, and we cooperate with one or two of our off-world friends or beings, and they help us to bury our memories deep. The memories are there, but we can't access them until we either experience some sort of trigger, or suddenly some small amount of information you'll just start remembering. And at other times, we could end up remembering quite a lot. Now, meditation and hypnotherapy can help, but it is really important that people have a supportive environment so that they're not forced into psychiatric diagnosis and treatment. And so that's what I wanted to say about that. And that goes into what you were saying, Mateyus, about how we can now have documents, obtain documents where we can express ourselves as being free from the construct, free from the medical system, free from the structures that are not even real, that are being imposed upon us on the earth. Do you
all
have
fake, it's all fake, all illusory, all illusory perception. And once people obtain their sovereignty and obtain the true matrix, their own matrix, then you won't have anything to worry about. You know, you won't have much to worry about, but the care of your children and the care of your friends and your family. There's beings around us all the time. There's more eyes in this universe than there are cameras ever on this planet. And I told that to a good friend of mine that I was introduced to exopolitics, and he was saying, this is so fresh, this is such refreshing knowledge. He was saying, is you made a platform for us. I was like, yeah, like, people need to know this. People need to know, because it's so liberating. It's like, bro, you've changed my outlook on, like, this was 2 days ago. He told me I've changed his whole perceptual awareness, and it is all perception. It is all perception. I do believe that people have their own triggering points. Yeah. Everybody has their own soul contract, life force contract with the gods. Yeah. This is understanding what people need to understand. And if you think there's karma ignoring a governmental official, which is pure bullshit in your face, what do you think the karma is for ignoring your own life force? You know, people are feeling it, they're feeling sad, depressed. They can't see their friends, and for what? Lies. Push it to the side and open your eyes.
And that's what we're trying to do by sharing.
People want to love you. People want to love you, and people care. Now, there are more methods which I'd like to discuss about helping yourself liberate, but we will. I'll touch on those at the end of the talk, as to where your birth chart, the ecclesiastical depot, and the live born record is all you need. Mine is right here, and I will show people.
Okay.
Just so people can have a look properly. At the top it says live born record, and it says my name. And I'm proud to show that because I'm very happy and the gods are very happy with me and what I'm doing. And I'm not more than gratified to tell people the truth. It's the way they should live their lives. And you should, no matter what's happened, you must look the other way. It is all brought upon yourself if you wish it to be. And liberation and happiness is the only thing that you should ever want in this life. And at all costs, you must take the tokens and the keys and the guides and the people that are wanting to help you with all arms and strength. And just know that we're here. We will always be here. So if people want to find out more information about the Ecclesiastical Depot and the live born record, please visit oneheaven.org. That's ONE heaven.org, where you can find the PDF of a live born record and the Ecclesiastical Depot. And if you wish to have your own birth chart, the birth certificate is irrelevant. It is when I'd just like to say, like when I've given people their birth chart, they're pleasantly surprised as to understand what this is and what this really is. If a child were to have this at their age, as soon as they were born, they'd understand why they came here, what they want, who's in charge, and just know you will only ever be happy in this lifetime. There is only happiness. No matter what that looks like, it always will be happiness. So I just want to say thank you. So that's Franco Collins, Santos Bonacci, and myself. Pathveah, MateyusWinters.net. You can find us at Pathveah. The social media platform is launching at the end of this month. And so we'll be gratified to see everybody joining and making as much as donations as possible to make this happen. So I just want to say thank you again. So it's the Ecclesiastical Depot, the live born record, and your birth chart. Thank you.
Those are the three things you need.
That's it.
Okay. So I wanted to talk a little bit about my background and my paranormal history, so people can understand where I'm coming from. And I'm going to go back to my maternal grandmother. She was a healer midwife, and my mother was an alternative healer, and she had psychic abilities. And then there's me, and I experience clairaudience, precognitive memory, and other psychic abilities, as well as angelic and ET contact. I believe that my maternal grandmother was altered on a genetic level so that she could maintain ongoing ET contact. So just to give you some context, my grandmother was raised as a child in an isolated logging camp in Eastern Canada. And this is now, close to 100 years ago, where she made friends with invisible beings. She would come back from playing in the woods and she'd tell everyone about her friends. And she maintained a close telepathic connection with these friends throughout her life, to the point where she had little use for social human contact outside of her immediate family. My grandmother had intuitive ways of knowing, and she was well known for her natural healing abilities. She never charged money for helping others. One day, my mom told me this, one day a neighbor was recovering from back surgery and he was in a body cast. And the whole neighborhood was disrupted because he was constantly moaning. He was in so much pain and so much agony. And my grandmother sent a couple of my uncles out to kill a skunk without disturbing it. And as directed, they brought her the stink sack. And she cooked this up in a big pot on the stove with other ingredients like herbs and fat. And then she fashioned a large swab from a rag and a stick. And she took those over to treat the suffering neighbor. So Grandma dipped the swab into the solution and she stuck it down the back of the man's cast. And it brought him so much relief, and the neighborhood was quiet after that. Grandma's potion was the only thing that helped to ease his suffering, and no one knew how she was able to come up with her healing herbs and her concoctions since she had very little education. But I strongly believe that Grandma's invisible friends helped her to know. I also believe that my mother was either changed genetically or carried the altered genes from her mother. And although the paranormal kind of freaked my mother out, she didn't like talking about it or refer to anything as being paranormal. She often actually displayed advanced psychic skills, ways of knowing, and of course, healing. And she used these ways of knowing as an alternative healing practitioner, and she helped many, many people. And neither my grandmother or my mother charged any money. They just helped people. And I believe that my grandma was genetically altered, which made her ET contact much easier for us successive generations. I also have a niece who is very in tune with ET since childhood. Even as a little girl, she'd wake up in the morning and she'd produce these amazing technical drawings of complex technology, unknown written languages, and interesting diagrams. And they all just came to her while she was sleeping, and she felt compelled to write them down or draw them the next day. And then on the other side of my family, there's my birth father, who was a very unusual person, and I believe he possibly had ET contact as well. After he was divorced by my mother, he hand-built a tiny little sailboat, which he called Thumbelina, and he set off to sail around the world. He traveled without charts or navigation equipment. He just was able to use his intuition, and he was able to observe the position of the stars in the sky. And he sailed from Vancouver, BC, Canada to New Zealand. He then went on to Fiji, and then he eventually made it to Japan. Now, one day, as he and his little boat was leaving Japan, he went missing off the coast of Japan in what is known as the Dragon's Triangle. Now, the Dragon's Triangle is like the Bermuda Triangle, but it's on the other side of the planet. And no trace of him or his boat was ever found. He just 1 minute was there, and the next minute he was not there. So due to my family history, I believe that I have the genetics for ET communication, and this multi-generational component has made me a good candidate for much contact. And there is also a small possibility that I may even be a hybrid being. So some of us are ordinary people who have extraordinary experiences. I believe that we all share the potential for ET contact. I don't think that as contactees that we're special. We have some genetics that have been altered, but many of us have experienced trauma, which gives us the ability to dissociate, and it causes changes in the brain's receiver wavelength, and we become very good psychic receivers. So our brains do a lot of things, but one of the things they do is act as antenna and help us to bring in information from other realms as needed or as wanted. Do you have anything you want to add to that, Mateyus?
Yeah, I do believe everything you've just said. In regards to ET experiences as well, I do believe that most beings, they've reached that intellectual capacity as to where they're able to understand and perceptualize the true understandings of an ET. Now, I'd just like to say that everybody is the real ET on this planet. They've done the conditioning that much that they've made everybody think that they're all human, or that everybody is a humanoid. Our family stretches from this beyond 900,000 species of humanoid in our universe. There's an estimated 150,000 on our planet, which means there's more out there than there are here. Everybody is different. Everybody has different genetics. Everybody's from the same source, as we would say. In regards to the trauma, I do believe, yeah, most people are able to perceptualize the true understanding of the universe. As I would say, like I've just said, it is the true understanding of the universe and a true understanding of ET and what we're here for, you know, as in like just living your life. If people were to like to know more information about ETs in general, I'd like to give a shout out to Elena Dana and Laura Eisenhower. these two have been able to perceptualize. Laura's been able to perceptualize planetary consciousness as well a lot. I do love her teachings. And Elena is she's a ET contactee from the Galactic Federation. She does channel the Federation a lot. And as to what's going on in the world, what's really going on, who's really in charge here, you know, and then put a stop to the human trafficking. And as you were just talking about hybrids, there's a lot of hybrid species here that have they've been through a lot. They've been through a lot, and they have a home, just as we all do. But yeah, in regards to the intellect, if you know, like I said, if ET were to come to our planet, they'd want to see that we're a very intellectual being, would want to promote the health of their planet. You know, they want everything better for everybody else, and I do believe that they're looking for the true leaders now. You know, the true people that are really awake and really want unity consciousness, and they really want because there is only one timeline. There is only one timeline. In regards to getting everybody else to hear this, it's the best way to be. Yeah, I do. Everybody does have their special. Everybody has their own origins in regards to the DNA. You know, DNA lineage might stretch. It does stretch from the mother side. The mother side is what carries the full force lineage DNA. Of course, the father. Of course, the father is you are one with your mother and father, but it's the mother that's the most dominant with the DNA helix and strand, which is we've been lied to again. You know, as to what your DNA is and why everything's going on for a reason. Like right now, people have so much power they wouldn't be able to comprehend, properly fathom, but it is there. It is there to understand, and once you understand that, it's it's a passing again, and then again that's another spiral of intellect and having an ET asking you, do you really understand what's going on here, and you being able to say yes, and you know what you must do. Yes, you know what you must do, and just being peaceful, Yeah, I do believe a lot of people have had a lot of ET experiences as I've heard myself and met, and have been a pleasure to sit down and talk with very few individuals that have been well, I wouldn't even say a few, a lot. Everybody's had their own experiences with spirit, with ETs. I myself, I'm one. Let's say that the birds keep me company. But if I were to have an intellectual conversation with an Elmer Nuke or Emertha or Redon or Gimbal, just to name a few, which are working with the council of that's the council of five. I'd love to have a conversation as to how we can really help progress with humanity and help our families and friends. And there is only one way to be, and that's happiness. That's happiness. If people want to help strengthen themselves in regards to their if they feel like they are able to perceive the spiritual dimensions or any ETs at all, I definitely channel into that. I definitely make that stronger. And the conditions are you don't abuse this power. You not abuse this power because the ramifications. I mean, you don't ever dream. You don't know people's consciousness. You really don't. You really don't. And some people are malefic and benefic and malefic. There is always a duality. I feel like this duality must be perished now. It's an old paradigm. It's again, you could say it's lies. You could say it's lies again. And I don't do any lies. I don't do lies. So if people are able to channel and experience this ET evolution, it's your own power, I want people to be able to understand their power and fathom their power, and what they gave to themselves before they came here, and understanding incarnation and things like this. There's books. I'm sure people will find their own way, as everybody has only ever in this ever present moment. And I'm very thankful that we've come together and been able to talk about these things, as to because people have been there, they're not really sure what to think about it. And they don't know many people as to when you first had your ET contact, you were like, who do I speak to about this? Oh, the big people gonna believe me, and like I feel like I know that all that old belief system has just been destroyed. So that's why I feel like when people are thinking about, oh, I'm gonna believe, it's kind of like it's an old thing, like you should 100% be full throttle with your belief in all beliefs really, and come
Mhm.
together But yeah, if people are able to experience these things, definitely meditate, therapies, do whatever your cup of tea. Let's put it that way.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Mhm. Thank you, Mateyus. That's really well said. So, I'm just going to talk a little bit about some of the things that happened to me in my life. And this isn't to make you feel sorry for me or anything like this. It's to show how these events actually prepared me for advanced ET contact. So, for instance, like when my mother was pregnant with me, she took a drug called thalidomide. And if you do some research on thalidomide, what happened was it caused significant birth defects. But for some reason, I was born with my arms and my legs. But you know what? I think there was something different about me as a result. So that, I believe, was actually part of the plan for the events that I chose for my life and being here. And then I experienced periods of isolation and trauma, which allowed me to develop my gifts further. So another example is when I was 3 months old, I developed both spinal meningitis and polio at the same time. And the doctors, in those days, the doctors made house calls, and the doctor came to the house, took one look at me and picked me up, put me in his car and drove me straight to the hospital. I was that sick. And I spent 6 weeks in isolation in the hospital with almost no contact from my mother. And they performed spinal taps on my little body at least twice while I was in the hospital. And it caused me to have a fair amount of back and neck pain for the rest of my life as a result. But I also believe this was my opening up point to universal consciousness in order to survive. See, any kind of mammal, including humans, if we don't have contact with our significant parents, specifically our mother, we don't do very well. And that's a lot of reasons why babies will die. But for some reason, I was just this tiny little baby, and I was able to survive 6 weeks of isolation because I believe I made contact. I don't remember specifically, but I believe that in order to survive, I opened myself up to universal consciousness in order to survive. And then later, when I was 4 years old, my younger brother and I spent 6 months in a very abusive foster care home. And while we were away, my mother started dating another man. She had divorced my father, and she soon got remarried. And this man, he was unfortunately very sadistic, and he thought that compassion was something for wimps. So that resulted in a lot of stress and insecurity throughout my childhood. And later, when I was 15 years old, my parents moved to another province without me, and they left me behind. Because they couldn't empathize. They didn't even think about what kind of effect that might have on me. And because I wasn't grown up and I didn't have any adult skills, I was preyed upon by strangers and I was severely abused. And this resulted in even more trauma. But these traumatic experiences allowed me to dissociate to a place where I was open to interdimensional contact. Trauma causes us to become innocent like children, and we've got no energy for resistance. And sometimes that leads to benevolent, unseen forces that come in to assist us. Usually those forces are thought of or referred to as angels, but they could be many different kinds of beings. And so working through trauma is what has elevated me. And it's the working our way through trauma that reveals the gifts of forgiveness and compassion. And I believe that every trauma becomes a blessing as we heal. And we also become outstanding empaths. And I learned that my experiences provided the perfect fertile soil for me to bring in my own inner resources. And we go inside in order to go outside. We're fractal holograms. And although we're perceived as a part, we actually carry the imprint of the whole within. and we can access anything and everything by going within. How do you feel about that, Mateyus?
I agree. I do agree. This vessel is you've been gifted this vessel from the gods. You're very powerful. In regards to the traumatic experiences, yeah, I do believe most ETs will have, but we are surrounded by a sea of spirit that we cannot see, but still yet to perceive.
Mm-hmm.
In regards to their well-being, they want us well. There is no in between. That's exactly why I do believe that most ETs are here. In regards to some of the past experiences that I know people have been through, many people have had traumatic experiences, but only ever to liberate themselves. They understand. They understand what's happened. Like I've said, you can look back or look the other way. And most of our ET friends, they understand this life and what this life is, and they want us to understand what this life is and the choices that we make as free will individuals, because this is 100% free will universe.
Yes.
Free will universe. In regards to the karma aspect, yes, just know that anything that's happened will come back to those that it does come back to bite you in time. And most of our ET friends do want us to develop a lot. They want us to continue, because this is a life that we have given to ourselves, and how much more life do we have to give? This life is just an episode, let's say, before you go back and join source consciousness and everybody else. But we already are one. We are already all one. The universe, multiverse, omniverse, the term that we must understand. Once you understand this, it's another blessing, and more blessings will be to come.
I would agree with you. It's a little bit like going to sleep at night. Living a lifetime is like living a day. And you go to sleep at night and you wake up in the morning. And I think we do many, many lives. And I also believe that many of us, if not all of us, one time or another, were ET. We don't always have to incarnate into Earth. It depends on what we need for soul development and stuff like that.
Well said, well said.
So I'll just go a little bit into my childhood experiences, if you like, there. So in my childhood contact, my paranormal experiences started when I was quite young. And even as a child, I didn't like social groups. I preferred to be alone, and I had my own reality where I felt very connected to nature. And this led to my communication with bugs and plants and animals. And I was open to contact with other realms. My spiritual guides have always been with me, and we communicate without words. I do not physically see them, but I am very, very aware that they are with me. Also, I've always experienced quite a lot of missing time. And later as an adult, I had the habit of missing a lot of social engagements. Well, partly because probably I didn't really want to go. But to be honest with you, I would be getting ready to go and sit down on the foot of my bed and be pulling on my socks. And all of a sudden, boom, it's 4 hours later and the event has already happened. And afterwards, people are going, well, how come you didn't show up? And I wouldn't have an explanation. So it actually, I got to tell you, the more paranormally advanced we are or proficient we are, it really sometimes interferes with mainstream living. But as a child, I always received loving support from my spiritual guides, and they came in the form of lucid dreams and spontaneous knowing. So I would just know. And when I know, it's not just in my mind, it's a full body sensation. And lucid dreams, I'm completely awake. I'm sitting with my eyes open, but the dream state comes in and overlays my ordinary vision, and I see these amazing things. They can, all kinds of lessons teaching me all kinds of different things. And I've also had some special abilities, but my family kept telling me, no, that's not real, and don't talk about it. People are going to think you're crazy. And so I stuffed my paranormal experiences down very, very deep. And I always knew that there was so much more to life. And since I was spiritually minded, I always joined different religions over the years to, try to find the explanations to my experiences. Because at that time, there was nowhere near the information that we have today. And unfortunately, the ministers, the priests, the pastors all taught me that this type of experience was from demons. And I was strongly discouraged from ever talking about it. And I think that's because they don't want to lose their power over us. And if we already have a strong sense of spirituality from other sources, I think maybe that threatens their paradigm. So later on, when I was in my late teens, and this is around 1973, I've been around for a while, I had an experience with my younger brother, Dan, who lived about an hour's drive away from me at the time. And we were both receiving ET communications while we slept. And these communications were remembered as vivid dreams. And Dan and I had the same experience, which doesn't surprise me because Dan and I are from the same mother and the same father, whereas my other siblings are from the same mother but have different fathers. So we were invited to join an off-world, a group of off-world beings on a physical spaceship to another world. And I wasn't talking about this because to be quite honest, at that point, without any support, I kind of hoped I was imagining it. I thought I was imagining it. But the next time I saw my brother, I told him, and he confessed that he was having the very same invitation and experience. So we didn't even live in the same household. We didn't even live in the same suburb area. And we were having the same exact at the same time. So we talked about it and we decided to go. But the night we were supposed to leave, we both received a vivid dream that we should not go because there was something wrong with the situation. I didn't get any more than that. But the next day, Dan and I contacted each other and he told me that he saw a terrible accident and some of our off-world friends were killed. So I think somehow they brought down the ship and it crashed and some of our friends were killed. And that's all I know. And I kept listening for contact back then, but there was only silence for a number of years. And I just have one other quick thing that I'm going to include in childhood is shortly after that first ET encounter, my brother and I, we hopped the trains to Calgary, which is in Alberta, another province in Canada. And we went to visit his girlfriend. And that was quite the trip because we didn't get a ticket. We hopped the trains illegally. And there's a whole process to how you do that I'm not going to get into, but it was pretty exciting. And my brother was going out with a much older woman who was one of Canada's top artists. And her name was Gina Christofferson. And this is really weird, but Gina was also a mystical intuitive. And one day we gathered in a hotel dining room in Calgary, Alberta, excuse me, with her two grown children named Monty and Nisha Christofferson. And Gina revealed some really startling information. Apparently, Gina, Monty, Nisha, Dan, and I were at this very point in time by divine arrangement. So Gina claimed that we were of the brethren of the white light. And we were here to fix the timeline and anchor in divine light frequencies. At the time, I had no idea what this meant, but in hindsight, I actually think she was right. So I'll just pause for some comments from you, Mateyus, on that was sort of what happened in my childhood. Fairly dramatic experiences. And again, everyone thought I was crazy. I really couldn't talk about this to anybody.
Yeah, the dream world, as I'd like to put it, the subconscious realm. Now, the subconscious realm is many things in which great gifts have been brought forth through dreams and channeling. Now, I do believe and know that Luna in the sky, the moon, we call Luna, and the sun is Sol, S-O-L. Luna rules the subconscious mind as Sol rules the conscious mind. So it's waking and sleeping at the same time. Now, with those experiences, I do believe that you've always been channeled. You've always been able to channel this frequency band. Now, with the dream's a gift again. So I do believe that. I do believe that, you know, I have had myself. I am able to channel in my dreams. I am, full regard, without any ill regard to myself. And I know for a fact that I've personally, I have seen ships. I have seen ships in the sky. I can see the ships right now. You know, they're massive. Trump in a little helicopter that's flying at that. You know, their technology doesn't make this insolent sound. It's because the technology is far superior. Now, if people would like to know about the subconscious mind, I definitely have to have a look at Luna again. Elena will be able to talk to people about that. But in regards to the moon as well being liberated, it was under dark forces. Now it's not anymore. And now that conscious mind is able to trigger more happily and enjoyably to help people with it. Because we do have a subconscious mind for a reason. And when we say that we're all connected, we are. And Luna is that one, just one of the connections as to which we are connected to, and which is our dream world. So you and your brother sharing the same dream, yes, that's very fortunate, so, and very truthful, very truthful. In regards to the ships, yeah, that's true. I fully believe that. I know for a fact that I've had the same eloquence in the dream space. The dream space is something when people can tap into it. I know a couple of people. I've seen a couple of people express themselves that they're able to have the dream space, and they're able to channel events that are happening, pre-existing events that are forthcoming, and things like this. So yeah, in regards to how you felt as well, of course, the times are changing. The times back then, everybody was classed as a label, but of course, the elites know what they're doing. They know that all of this exists. The perceptual balance of what they made the human race understand is minute compared to what they really are. And now with the fact that you're able to, that's just one of the examples as to tapping into the channeling of your power and your frequency. And now in regards to the occult side, yes, most of the factors have been rubbished and refurbished because there's new power manifested every day. Now we're in the age of Aquarius. It's fully hands-on experience. There is no in between in regards to wanting to manifest something. If you want to manifest something, you can.
Mm-hmm.
In regards to your power, yeah, definitely. I'm definitely just quite surprised. It made me feel very happy knowing that you've been through such an experience at such a young age. If I had done that myself, you know, everybody goes through things. Everybody has their own individual experiences. Again, it's a big, not necessarily a question mark, but it's kind of like I'd love to talk about this more. I'd love to talk about this more. So yeah, continue on that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Very good. Okay. So now I just want to talk a little bit about my adult contact. So once I was in my 20s, I was tired of feeling socially isolated by my experiences, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So I joined fundamentalist Christian religion, and I got married, and I had babies, and I attempted to have a normal life. And I was looking for truth everywhere, but not within. And I saw so much shameful hypocrisy within my religion. And due to ignorance, stigma, and the shunning practices of the congregation, it was not safe for me to tell the truth about my paranormal experiences. I even got confused as to whether I was imagining things as I embedded myself into a religion that taught that paranormal experiences were the work of Satan or the devil. And I actually developed significant health issues from keeping this part of me suppressed. I had to function constantly censoring myself, and it was very, very stressful. But after I left religion for good in the 1990s, I realized that there was so much evidence to support my paranormal experiences that there's no way that I could have imagined it. And this actually led to a very deep personal and spiritual crisis. about the same time, I was going through a really rough life lesson, and I was consumed with grief and sadness. Now, this is really important for people to understand how our emotions affect the frequency that we're vibrating at, and that affects the contact of the kind of beings and the quality of beings that we have in our realm. So what happened was I was in so much grief and sadness that this significantly lowered my vibration, and I became imprinted by the spirit of a man who had killed himself while he was living in the house that I was now renting. And I know this is true because I later made friends with a woman, and when she found out where she lived, she said, "Oh my gosh," she says, I know the mother of the man who lived in that place just before you moved in." And I said, "Really?" And she said, "Yeah, he killed himself. And this is how he did it. It was in a very specific way. And I didn't know anything about that at the time, but I was in this very low vibrational state. And I picked up his imprint, and I was going to kill myself in the exact same way that he had done it. And actually, but then this led to an even better experience, because I was actually at the point, Mateyus, where I was going to kill myself. I was so sad and so full of grief, I just didn't think I could survive. But then I had this really profound angelic experience, and it changed my life forever. So what happened was I had this very explosive vision of angels. And I say explosive, well, nothing blew up, but it was just that the visual was so big and so amazing. And I heard one voice, it sounded like 1,000 voices all speaking at the very same time. And the angels appeared as points of light, and they had all this light flashing out on either side, and it gave them the appearance of wings. And Gabriel, the archangel, came to me, and the message they gave me was really changed my life forever. And it was then that I realized that we have tremendous value, like what you were saying. And this is why angels are so interested in us, and they deeply love and they cherish each and every one of us.
Each and every one.
So I learned that the beings from the angelic realms love us unconditionally, and there's nothing we can do to change this. All we have to do is have a willing spirit and make first contact to initiate the relationship. And at this level, all parts of our life journey are sacred and fuel for soul evolution. We are intimately known, and nothing is hidden from these ones. You see, because they know everything, and they know why we ended up in the situations we end up. They know why we reacted the way we reacted. And from their very high level of reality, they see everything we experience, not as making mistakes, but as having life experiences for our development, and they support us in that. So very different from this world. We don't have to pretend we're perfect. We don't have to be afraid of making mistakes. They will always be there for us. But because we have free will and this is our realm, we have to ask them, to come in. And so, excuse me, Gabriel told me that I could leave this life if I wished to, because there are exit points that each human can use when the going gets too rough for us to handle, because life was not ever meant to be so unbearably painful. But Gabriel also alluded to the fact that suicide is always forgivable. It is our part of our free will and our life contract, if we participate in that. Now, personally, I'm really glad I stuck around, because the best was just yet to come. And so I was told, that, sorry, what? And I was told that
I said, well said, my love.
Oh, thank you. I'll just finish this little part here. So I was told that if I wished to stay here on Earth, they would definitely give me a helper. And they said it was up to me to choose what that helper would be. And I was actually quite amazed by the suggestion. I had to actually think about this for a couple of days, because I had never heard of this before. I wasn't sure if I was worthy or what the best kind of help would be. And so I was told that when I was ready to just tell them, and they will know because they're never far away. So after thinking about this for a couple of days, I decided that I wanted wisdom. I thought about all the things that would give me the perception of power, like money or popularity or beauty, but I knew these were not what I needed. I chose wisdom because then I felt that if I had wisdom, I could be of real benefit here on earth, and I knew that I could make a successful life for myself. And another thing that happened that was quite strange at the time is after I chose my gift, I was asked if I wanted the quick method or the slow method. And I should have asked questions or had that clarified. I didn't understand really what I was being asked. And so I quickly answered, oh, I want the quick method, because I, at the time, was very naive. I thought they would just pour the wisdom into me fast, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's not how it works. I found out later that we learn from our experiences. Rather than just having the wisdom pour into me, I had to live the kind of life and the experiences that would teach me that wisdom. So this led to much challenge and inspiration, but throughout it all, excuse me, I was never alone. And I was soon able to actually go back to school and complete a university degree. And even though I have, quite poor reading comprehension, I was actually able to get very good grades. But then in 2007, more tragedy, although depending on how you look at it, I had a very horrifically botched surgery, which resulted in significant physical disability, mental torment, and loss of life skills. But I survived, and although life threw me a lot of curveballs, I was able to overcome each obstacle one at a time, and I was able to cope because I had my guides with me. So for instance, when I was in the hospital, I was there for 6 weeks. I could have nothing by mouth, no water, nothing to eat. It was a horrible experience that I'm not going to talk about the details, excuse me, but it left me with a brain injury so that I couldn't communicate very well with people. My sentences would all get mixed up and I couldn't put my thoughts together properly. People thought I was on drugs. Of course, I couldn't work. I couldn't provide for myself. It was really quite a terrible time, but it was perfect for what I needed because it made me realize that I had to go within to access the spiritual realms, not without, that I had to make that connection. And once I moved them in with me, they have been with me ever since. So I've always been connected to my guides, even today. I work for Archangel Gabriel ever since then, from December 21st to March 21st each year, fulfilling missions and completing exercises for soul development. That looks different every single year. I'm just completing another 3-month session right now with Gabriel. And then about 2010, I started to experience ET contact again. And the feelings were of such intense love that I received from them that I knew these beings were good. I just knew that contact agreed with my pre-birth life agreements and that I had set up before I was born, that it was essentially part of my life purpose and my life plan. And I also believe that I have extensive contact with these beings, even beyond my 3D body. So my higher self makes contact with and even without my conscious awareness. Now, before I go a little bit more into that, I thought I would just stop and get some reflections from you, Mateyus, if you have anything you want to say about any of that.
On the reflection of the soul development with Gabriel, could you tell me a little bit more about that really quick?
Yeah, it's really neat how it works. Every year coming up before the solstice, the winter solstice, I kind of don't even think about Gabriel or working with Gabriel, but around that time, I start getting an intuition where I remember and I go, okay, do I want to do another mission this year? Do I want, to trust? Because I got to tell you, it's like jumping off a cliff or off a tall building. I don't know where I'm going to end up. I don't know what's coming. I just have to have blind faith. And every year I say, yes, Gabriel, I want you in my life. I want to work with you. Please, yes, do come into my life. So then the strangest things happen. Like one year, it was all about me going out of where I lived, out into the public, and being at a certain place at a certain time without having any idea why I was doing it. So this one time I went out at 3:00 in the morning, and I walked past a local church, and there was a man standing there with his forehead touching the church door, and he looked so sad. And I didn't know anything about what was going to happen or anything, but my instincts or my intuition just said, go and ask him if he needs a hug. And I went up to him and I said, are you okay? And he didn't say anything. I said, do you want someone to hug you right now? And he said, yes. And I gave him a hug, and that was it. And I turned around and I went back home. But because I did that, a series of events changed. That's how we can change the timeline. So I don't know. I never saw that person again, ever. And so it was external things like that. But then I thought, oh, I can do this. But then the next year, oh my goodness, it took a completely different turn. It was about how I conducted myself with family members, especially problematic family members. So now I had to elevate myself to be in the right kind of forgiving and loving frequency, to let them be who they were without having my typical reactions. That was one of the hardest missions I've ever had. So every year it's different. This year, it's about me getting out more public and sharing more information and networking with other people like yourself. That's what the mission is this year. So it's different every single year. I never know what to expect, but that's kind of the thrill of it. A little bit of a thrill of it is because I don't know, but I have absolute faith that I will be in loving care during this 3-month period. So it's the darkest time of the year. It's the coldest time of the year. But there's always something for me to do. Yeah.
Well said. I love that. Thank you. Continue, Mara.
Okay, so I'm getting near the end. Let me see, how far am I to go yet? We're coming closer now. So I wanted to go on to explain that lucid dreams with remote viewing are a regular feature of my contact experience. So sometimes I just get spontaneous knowing and downloads. It takes a second to receive a download, but it takes time to unwrap and synthesize the data. So for example, I received the basic concept for the Quantum Health Transformation Program. I received it in an instant, but it took me nearly 2 years to unpack the concepts and create the program. Then in 2012, I received the call to level up and notice Earth changes. So all of a sudden, I heard about, there was some kind of change, a spiritual change that was supposed to happen. I think 12. But it was in 2012. And I knew that something big was happening. But it was weird because like a lot of the people that I interacted with on an everyday level, they had no perception of it. Even people who were supposed to be very high level spiritual beings, they weren't acting like there was a change when I was noticing a big change. But I didn't just notice it spiritually. I noticed that the sky started to look different, that the trees started to look different, that our physical reality was subtly changing. And in 2013, I received a download, and that's when I began using the Nubby Ball tool. Now, I'm not going to get into that too much today, but those of you who are familiar with the Quantum Health Transformation Program, it's free, it's online, and that is from step 9. So I started, I started to understand that and experiment with that. And then in 2014, I received the rest of the Quantum Health Transformation download, and I started to downstep the information for the free online course. I'm hoping, as our sessions continue, perhaps I can get into a little bit more about that.
Yes, definitely. Most definitely.
Oh, good. So in 2015, I became aware of some ongoing intergalactic ambassador work that I was doing. And to do that kind of work, I did not travel there physically. I remained in my bed sleeping at night, but my consciousness was definitely transported to the big ship each night. Physical presence is not needed to do the ambassador work. At first, it was a bit unsettling because I'd wake up in the middle of the night to use the washroom, and I would be acutely aware that I was in the middle of one of these meetings on board the big ship. So I would feel embarrassed because I'm pretty sure they know that I was going to go to the bathroom. But the way they think, feel, and observe is so different than us.
Completely, yes.
Yeah, it bothered me, but it didn't seem to bother them at all. But
of course, it's not as natural. Yeah.
So it's important for me to mention that there is a time differential also between Earth time and intergalactic time. So from an Earth time perspective, I was taken every night for about 3 months, but in my experiencing it off-world, it was more like 3 years of ET time. So time is really different there. And they're not bound, by the rotation around a sun that gives us a 24-hour day. And there are times when I'm also outside of my physical existence. And when we're outside of our physical existence, there is no time and there is no distance. So it makes sense that I was able to wake up in the morning, even though I had been gone for weeks. It was very interesting. And I have no physical proof of my off-world adventures, but I do have some very vivid memories, and I've sure learned a lot. And after this, I began to do more research, and I found out about Dr. Stephen Greer's CE5 movement back in 2015, and I was greatly encouraged by Paul Hellyer and the Disclosure Conference, which I found out about the same time. He's a Canadian who was a high-ranking military official who came forward and talked about how our government and many of the other governments were in contact with and doing business with extraterrestrials. So as a result, I started to meditate and I started to reach out for more contact. Now I have a little bit I'd like to say about some of the sightings of UFOs that I've seen while awake and present and conscious here on Earth. But I just thought I'd just check in with you to see if you have any relative comments about the last section I just went over.
Yeah, I'd love for you to talk about those ET experiences that you've seen. You said you've seen UFOs. I'd definitely like you to expand on that, baby. If you want to go for that, go for it. Definitely go for it. I'm here. I'm listening.
Oh, okay. So, like I said, this is not while I was in dream state. This is not while I was lucid dreaming, nothing like that. This is actually being present, fully present and aware and conscious and going about my life here on Earth. So the first one I'm going to call Headlights Over the Water. I was driving up the Island Highway on Vancouver Island one evening, and it was after dark. And I was getting tired, so I pulled off to the side of the road to take a break. And it was too dark for me to recognize any of the surrounding area. So off to the right of me was ocean. And I knew that I was overlooking the ocean and possibly there might be some islands out there. But, I was tired and I was just taking a little break. Well, I soon noticed two lights, which looked just like headlights from another car that would have been off in the distance, but facing me. And I thought to myself, well, there must be a nearby island with a parking lot facing the highway or something like that. So soon I pulled back onto the island highway, but I noticed that as I drove north, the headlights kept pace with me. So I immediately knew this was not another car, because if it was, it would have to face the same direction, traveling in the same direction of me, and the two headlights would no longer be visible. But also I knew there was pretty much mostly just water out there. And it was really thrilling because the lights kept pace with me for about 10 miles until I came to a nearby town. And I knew that there was nothing out there but water. And so it must have been a UFO. So the next time I went down island, as I was driving back up island, I would go to other towns to visit family and friends and things like that. So just to be sure, the next time I drove up island, I stopped at the place where I first saw those headlights, and there was nothing out there but water. And way off in the coast, there was the coast, which was way off in the distance. So absolutely, I don't know if it was ET or not, but it was definitely a UFO. The next sighting I saw was a cigar-shaped interdimensional craft. So I just happened to look up one day in the daylight, and I saw way up in the sky, I saw this metallic gray cigar-shaped object. And less than a second later, as I was watching it, a circular rainbow appeared at one end of it. And the rainbow then slowly engulfed the object, and it appeared to shorten as it was drawn into the circular opening in the sky. So the circular rainbow was like an opening, and as it sort of traveled over the ship, you could see the part that it hadn't gone in yet, but the other part was completely gone. Yeah. And once it completely disappeared from sight, the rainbow portal, it just disappeared. So that was pretty amazing. I've seen saucers at dusk in the clouds, and I recommend people try this if you want to see UFOs. So many times I've seen the saucer-shaped objects just sitting in the clouds at dusk. So it's like when the sun is coming down, you'll notice that the light that shines up from it, often creating sunsets, it has a very different kind of light to it. And it casts a different kind of light up into the clouds, and the clouds become almost transparent. And just before the sun disappears below the horizon, you can see these saucer-shaped objects. They become very visible as the clouds appear to be more translucent. And another experience I had was a fireball. And again, it was while I was traveling north on the Vancouver Island Highway, and I noticed a big sparkling golden copper-colored ball with a short tail, which came down out of the sky on an angle. And it landed out of view at the top of some low mountain ranges on my left. So when I'm traveling north on Vancouver Island, the water is off to my right, and the low mountain ranges are off to my left. And so I was about 100 yards, I'm just guessing, below the impact site, yet there was no noise, no vibrations, and I seemed to be the only one who noticed it. Now, when I got home, I did an internet search for any news about comets or any space debris or anything like that that may have been noticed in the North Nanaimo area, but there was no news, so I guess I'm the only one who saw it. And then I've seen orbs of all sizes. So I've seen many, many orbs, and some of them appear to be small and some appear to be large, even 6 feet in diameter. They do not appear to be solid or metallic. They seem to be almost translucent. And one day, and this only happened to me a couple of years ago, I was sitting on my bed and I just saw one come rolling like a wheel through one of the walls, passed right in front of me, and then went out the outside wall. And I sat there going, wow, because I have so many paranormal experiences, I wasn't frightened or anything like that. But I often see them in the sky, and I'm not sure if they're smaller or if they just appear to be smaller because they could be further away. And I've never interacted with them. I have no idea what they're about, but that was pretty cool. And I get a funny feeling before I see a UFO, just like, you know, when you get the urge to look at the clock and you see it's 11:11 or 3:33 or 4:44. Well, it's the same thing with UFO sightings for me.
13.
Yeah. So this might be an interconnection of consciousness. I just happened to look up at the very right moment, and I actually even think they want to be seen. Otherwise, why would they use lights at night? Like, I'm sure they have the technology to fly in the dark. Why would they need to appear at all if it wasn't to let us know that they're there, right? So in In the next episode, in part 2, I want to introduce you and our viewers to some of my ET friends, their culture and details about the big ship. And if there's time, I'll get into the orientation process, because I went through a very specific orientation process when I first started being transported to the big ship. And that's about it. If I just want to also mention before I forget, if anybody has any questions about the Intergalactic Resettlement Program, I'll do my best to answer the questions on the next show. And people can email me at forbiddentransformation@gmail.com. And I'm going to post this to YouTube, Mateyus. So the links that you mentioned, maybe you could just get them off to me in an email after the show. And then I can make sure they're there so that everybody can tap right into the good things that you're also bringing to the table. So that's about it for today. But I just want to know, do you have any closing remarks or any other bits of information you want the viewers to hear before we conclude?
I just want to say thank you for everybody that's listening. I'm very much looking forward to seeing part 2 of the Intergalactic Resettlement Program. Like, everything that we have to offer, I would love to soak up and absorb for myself and my this knowledge, and the orientation process by going on the ships is, it's the next stage. It's the next stage in the development. It's if I were to invite an ET to our world, I'd love for them to come and have a party. Let's just have a party. It's for real. I'm about the party, like I said, I'm about it. But I'd absolutely love to do this. So if people want to soak up this knowledge, definitely come through, come through. You'll be here with me and Karen, and I absolutely love it. So I just want to say thank you for inviting me again, my love. Thank you guys very, very much. Thank you very much.
And I want to thank you for being here with me and giving me a chance to talk about this. After being silent for so many years, it's just so refreshing to be able to come out and have safe space to talk about my experiences. And I think part of the reason why I'm encouraged, why my ET friends are encouraging me and my guides to get this information out there, is to help prepare people for what's coming, but also to reduce the fear. There's so much fear. It's a disease spreading throughout like a great nothing, taking over all yes. And we want to, and we want to help fix that and make people feel safer and more comfortable. And
and give the people what they want to hear.
Yes, absolutely. So and I understand you're going to post this on Pathveah on the website.
Yes, I am.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So let's continue with the series off camera. We'll figure out the next day we can meet. I'd like to go through parts 2 and parts 3, and maybe even, I don't know, part 4, depending how much we get through. And then also, I would also like to then talk about the Quantum Health Transformation Program, because it's very inclusive, it's very comprehensive, and it covers all aspects of being. And now, while everyone's under lockdown, is a perfect time for people to get into this information. It's absolutely free. If anyone has access to the internet and understands basic English, they can access the whole program for free. It's over 20 videos. It's very comprehensive. It covers everything, physical, emotional, spiritual, how to make contact with our guides, everything. But it has to be done in order, because it's like we have to create a foundation. Under opening our mind is the first part. And then after we open our mind, we have to detoxify physically, spiritual, emotionally, and we have to detoxify from the construct that we've been brainwashed into thinking is reality, when it, as you have mentioned too, is not. So that's where I'm hoping we're going to go. So anyway, thank you so much.
Yes, well said.
Okay, and we'll just say goodbye to everybody for now, and we'll see you all next time. I'm looking forward to it.
Goodbye, everybody. We'll see you all next time.
Okay, peace, brother.